Yakuza 0, Fallout 4, S, Ship of Theseus, and an X-rated chicken pasty. This is Staying In.
Sorry if I'm a little groggy, by the way.
Why are you groggy?
I've been trying to get back into Fallout 4.
Right, and that's making you feel ill. Okay.
Well, not ill. Groggy isn't ill. Groggy is just kind of like like a bit like a morning after feeling, isn't it?
I'd say groggy is like 0.2 on the Wellington scale, but yeah, continue.
Because Fallout 4 was the game. For some reason, I decided to distract myself from The Witcher 3 to play.
Yeah.
And then I went back and completed The Witcher 3, and since then I haven't gone back to it until now.
Yeah.
So I booted it up, and I spent 12 hours as a distraction on that game.
That's not
12
bad.
hours.
That's not bad. It's 12
And
hours.
I've not even started the main story thread.
Great.
As well as part of my character role, because even though it is kind of a prescriptive RPG, like I do try and roll, especially with Fallout 4, I do try and like see if I can bend it to mine will.
Right.
So I decided that my character Samuel didn't actually want to go and search for his lost son.
Okay.
And felt very disenfranchised, because basically it starts off with you basically getting dicked over, like you're told to go into the vault when the nuclear war happens, and then you witness a tragedy happening, and it's quite clear it's like a government force committing this tragedy. So as a former army soldier, which I think you are, I felt the way I'm rolling it is that I felt very disenfranchised from it. So I've just gone out on a limb, and I'm not going to go and, like, for me, going to find my son is like too much of like standing up to my old responsibility. So I've just been like dicking around in the wasteland for 12 hours.
Great. That's certainly what I would do if there was some sort of terrible disaster like that. I don't know. I said that without really thinking about it. Would I? I'd like to think I'd be a productive person. I'd like to think I'd be one of those people who gets killed.
Gets killed?
I get killed, but like I go out into the desert to forage for things, and unfortunately I get killed like halfway through. I'm clearly not the hero of the story, but you are the people. You will form the umbrella of people when they say lots of people died to get this information. Yeah, I'm in the group where we all get killed, and there's a sad, like, slow-mo violin accompanied moment where we're all getting gunned down. I'm in that group.
You're in that group.
Yeah,
the sacrificial group.
Yeah.
But the problem that Fallout 4 has is that you can't, like, for all its freedom and for all of its RPG elements, like, you're really funneled down a certain path of where they want you to go. There's this great illusion to freedom, because you start off with and you meet this guy called Garvey or something like that. I can't remember. It was 12 hours and a lifetime ago. And he's like, we really want you to build this settlement. Are you up for it? And I was like, I just found out my wife's been murdered. My son's not around anymore. I've got to go and find him. Do you know how horrible it is out there? And you want me to, like, build a water purifier and plant some carrots? So I was just like, no, fuck off.
Yeah.
And instead of having some sort of thing built in for that response, he's like, yeah, well, I understand. Just come back when you're ready.
Brilliant. That is the hand of the designer. So, like, that is so video game narrative speak for, we want you to do this, so there's not really any choice. Like, you will do this.
Yeah, and like, and you can't make friends with any of the raiders. Like, you can make alliances throughout the game, but there's never any option to, like, just sit down with a raider and have a conversation. Right. They're always like raiders shoot first confrontations with them. They are a an enemy in the wasteland rather than. And that would kind of make sense, but also surely it would also make sense that some of them wouldn't shoot first and be interested in trading and like, but you know, it's still a great game, but after The Witcher, you do see some of the weakness in that writing, definitely.
But is that because, as far as I can understand it, The Witcher doesn't really have many of those come back later moments? It's all right, cool.
Well, and The Witcher is you're already playing a defined character. You are, you can't really decide how to roll with Geralt. Well, you can kind of make him a bit of a bastard, and you definitely have choices. But the idea in Fallout is you're creating your own guy. You give them their face, and you give them their sort of attitude within this place. But still, there's not. You've basically got like 4 dialogue choices, which is kind of like no, yes, indifferent, and sarcastic. So unlike The Witcher, where even though you don't have as much definition, you can still, when you say no to someone, that has a dramatic impact into what's happening in the story. Because they'll either go, oh, all right, well, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And even if they do say, all right, we'll come back when you're ready, sometimes, this is what happened to me in The Witcher, I came back and it was too late.
Brilliant.
The story had resolved itself and I'd basically just come back too late.
Perfect.
And which is kind of what you want.
But that is role playing, and it feels a lot more. It feels a lot more like you're in that space, and what your decisions are actually matter to that space. Like I always feel really let down when I make a big decision in a game and it's not really reflected in the world. So I actually found it really interesting in Fable 2. I played this years ago. But in Fable 2, when you make a decision like if you're mean, if you're just a horrible person, you are seen as evil, or a kind of evil. There's actually different types of evil. Like you might be slightly more chaotic, or just pure evil, or
so do people react to you when you're like going about?
Yeah, so people will actually say to you like, "Oh no, I don't want to trade with you," and stuff like that. I even think that some people will refuse to trade with you, and some people will like lower and raise their prices. So if you're a really great, amazing hero, some of them will treat you a lot better, and some of them just won't talk to you because you're just a do-gooder. So I that is really interesting. Whereas in some of these more, I think the Bethesda games generally have a little bit too much of this. Those games, you can run around and be a colossal dickhead to everybody, but as long as no one sees you, like as long as you survive the fights with the guards that turn up, you pretty much get away with doing anything. It doesn't really have a major ramification on how the actual game flows, which I always thought was a little bit odd, you know? And it's as big a deal as that, like, are you good or are you bad? All the way to, like, if I'm wandering, if I'm skulking around the streets doing stealth but being seen all of the time, then I would kind of expect the villagers to lock their doors more at night, because clearly somebody is pretending like they're this incredible thief but being seen all the time. So clearly there's some idiot around me.
Yeah.
And so surely they would then want to make it more difficult to break into their houses. But again, that doesn't really happen either. That's interesting. That's really interesting that you're at that point. Do you think you'll continue with Fallout 4?
Yeah. I think I will. I think I'm getting to the point now where and this is the other thing about it, is that I kind of need to start pushing the narrative on, because I'm at level 13, which I think is quite good for about 13 hours in that I am at. Okay. And considering I've not done any of the main story missions, I've not even gone to Diamond City, which I think is like the first thing you're meant to do. And I'm coming up against a bit of a brick wall with, sidelines and where I'm getting sidetracked in the game. So I'm thinking that if I start doing some of the mission stuff, which will obviously be graded at a certain level, and this was another great thing about Witcher 3, whenever you picked up a quest, it gave you the recommended level.
Cool.
So you knew immediately going into it whether it was too easy, and therefore you got less XP from it, or it's just at that level. You're at level 27 and it's at level 29. You're just like, well, yeah, I can do this. I can do this for a bit of an XP boost. Yeah. Whereas here, like, I just endlessly find myself going into, in Fallout 4, I endlessly find myself going into confrontations that I don't know whether I've got a chance of making it out the other side.
Yep.
Which in terms of game design is a little bit infuriating, because there's no one there to help you or to assist you. So if I go into this confrontation or I start following the story thread, am I just going to come up against a brick wall because it's far beyond my scope as a character, not necessarily as a player?
Yeah.
So I figured that I've got to start doing some of the main story stuff to try and get myself exposed to maybe some of the better weapons and the better kit and the gear, just so I can then make progress in other areas of the game.
Again, like, and I don't want to rag on like Skyrim, because I thought Skyrim was really, really. I certainly enjoyed my time with it. Ended up completing it, but I did find myself on more than one occasion getting halfway through a dungeon, running up against a mid boss, and there just being no way for me to defeat them. So then me turning on my tail and walking back out the door again to go and grind for another 2 hours, and it was like, this is really poor, especially considering that game, and I believe Fallout 4 has this as well, like a partner system. Skyrim certainly does.
It does. Yeah.
Where it would be so, I don't want to say easy, but it would be so obvious a design to literally just have your partner say, I don't think we can do this. Like, let's go off and do something else first. And again, that doesn't break that narrative. It doesn't take you out of the world. It just is a nice friendly reminder to the player of like, yeah, this is still an RPG with RPG systems where you do need to, match numbers with the kind of levels of enemies that you hit.
Witcher gets away with the numbering system, partly because generally the story is told to you from the viewpoint of the bard in the game.
Right.
So it's almost like this is a tale that's already happened, and so therefore you can kind of justify how like quests would already be numbered, and you wouldn't be encouraged to go on a quest that would ultimately lead you to die, because then that wouldn't be part of a cohesive story that this bard is telling. So that kind of makes sense, and it's just part of it just feels and because you're going on quests that you can actually complete, it makes you feel more part of the world, because you're not just turntailing and running away from stuff all the time.
I tell you what, it is a real shame that Dan isn't here, because I know, since we, of course I do. Since we last met, a game that I know he's been really excited for a year and a half now came out. And I've been playing it, and I've just been wanting to catch up with Dan over this so much.
Is it Neo?
No, it's Yakuza 0. So I don't know why you choked there, Sam. So basically, I've been obviously bullying him a little bit about he should totally get into Yakuza, and because it's basically Shenmue, and that was certainly my impression of it when I played Yakuza 3 on the PlayStation 3.
So this is a kind of so it appears that they are bringing all the Yakuzas to the new generation, and this is like a introduction to those who may not have played Yakuza before.
It does act as that, yes. So it's Yakuza 0, as the name sort of suggests, I guess, is set before the events of the original Yakuza. So and it is also fairly newbie centered. So the game was described by one local game employee as, it's like Streets of Rage from Japan.
it's not quite that. So it is, if you've played Shenmue, then it is kind of like that, or Way of the Samurai, which is a really excellent game. In fact, like Way of the Samurai is a really nice open world kind of game that, and it takes some of those elements, I suppose. It's a game where you play a main character who is a new member of the Yakuza, and the game starts off by basically you collect a debt. So you're very, very low level footman kind of Yakuza, and you start off by basically beating this guy up who owes some money. That's where the start of the story is, and it's also crucial to every other part of the story because, and I must admit I'm only 4 or 5 hours into it now, but what you do there is a massive impact on things that happen later.
Okay.
So
but is this like an open world?
Yeah, to some
game?
extent. To some extent. So it's like it's a third-person game. You wander around real streets of Japan. This is set in the 80s. So the series has always been really focused on showing a place as it really is. So if you play Yakuza 4 and wander around Akihabara, or one of the other, I believe you can wander around Akihabara, but the locations there, it's set in modern times, and they actually went and took photos and tried to recreate it as best as they possibly could. So this is set in the 80s in Tokyo, and everything is very 80s. It isn't that Western 80s of, Wham and Aha and Never Gonna, that sort of thing.
Go on. I wanted that to continue. Your pop culture references are terrible at the best of times, let alone 3 decades ago.
Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. And the cartoon Mask, and the A-Team, and the film Predator?
Yeah, I'll let you have that one.
All right, okay. So the main thing that you're doing is talking with people, exploring the environment, and I mean exploring, not climbing around or anything like that. It's not Uncharted in that way, but wandering around and talking to people, and then fighting, hand-to-hand fighting. So it's very Shenmue in that way. Like, that is Shenmue, basically.
Yeah.
But the best thing about it is that it straddles this wonderfully chaotic line between very, very serious, hard-boiled Japanese Yakuza fiction of here is how the family operates, here is what honor means, cut your finger off because you've betrayed us, plotting and scheming and betrayal and all this sort of stuff. Between that and let's all go down the arcade and play on Outrun. And let's jump through a window into a men's toilets, see the baddies holding their dicks in front of the urinals, beat the living shit out of them, grab them by the back of the head and smash them into the toilets. A man called Mr. Hold Up or Mr. Stick 'em Up or Mr. something along those lines. Basically, this massive guy who's like 8 feet tall and basically just steals all of your money. He's just this huge boss-like character who looks preposterous, who just comes after you every once in a while. And winning, and this is classic. You might have seen this GIF wandering around the internet. There's a bit where so you can go bowling, right? You can do you can do all sorts of amazing activities. I had this incredible moment where I was chucked out of the Yakuza. I was massively dishonoured by doing all this sort of stuff, and I was getting embroiled in this really difficult, intriguing plot. And not 2 minutes later, I was playing a Parappa the Rapper style minigame in which I was singing karaoke to a selection of wonderful Japanese pop hits from the 80s. The swing is so hard. But really welcoming, because you get this really nice up and down of, I'm really, really invested. What is the character going to do next? I can't believe that person did that. And I've gone bowling and that kind of thing. But and you can go and do a proper game of bowling. And
does that feel as trite and as it does in Grand Theft Auto 5.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because it is. Whereas Grand Theft Auto is constantly doing this we're pastiching everything. And isn't this stupid and funny? And haha, Scarface was cool, right? Yakuza is like, this is what this organization is like, and it is really hard-boiled and horrible and nasty, and we are playing this straight. So it's a genuine swing, because really it's not one form of comedy into another form of comedy. It's really, really serious into very funny. But yeah, so anyway, so you can go bowling, right? And there's a GIF floating about the internet where if you get a turkey in the game, which is you get 3 strikes in a row, you get called over to the counter where they hand out the
shoe
bowling
boy.
balls and the shoes and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and they said, "Oh, you got a turkey! Congratulations! You get our prize, a turkey!" And like the characters like, "Oh, brilliant! I can't wait! This is going to be absolutely fantastic! I'm going to have this absolutely delicious roasted turkey." And it's like this completely set on this guy's really serious face, and then it immediately cuts back to the desk, and there's a live chicken just stood on the desk, looking at you, going. And you're like, right. And then you proceed to have a 2-minute conversation where there's been this weird mix-up where they ordered a load of turkeys, but they got delivered like a bunch of live chickens, so they could kill the chicken for you and go and cook it. And then the main character goes, "No, don't worry about it. I'll use this person to run one of my businesses." So you can then place. There's a business management section, and you can have this chicken run one of your businesses.
Fantastic.
Sam, it's amazing. Like it's incredible. So you do all the bowling stuff, do all that, and as I say, I mentioned it earlier. Go and play Outrun in the arcades. It has full arcade games in the game. Like you can go and play arcade Outrun for hours. You can go and play Space Harrier, although I don't know why you would, because Space Harrier is awful. But you could do that. You can play Super Hang-On. There's a bunch of other games in there as well. Like I say, I'm like 4 or 5 hours in, and I have not laughed this hard at a game since, and you're going to like this, since 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. Like, it is that self-serious, damn it, shit, bang, 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 kind of trying to not tell a serious story, but isn't this cool, guys?
Yeah. Realising that it actually is quite fun.
Like, yeah, and that is really fun and cool in and of itself. You know, to that hard swing of 50 Cent driving over every single ramp which explodes, and it always explodes. You know, having a button that is dedicated to swearing. You know, like, it is such a hard move from one thing to another, and it really is funny. It's a really well told Yakuza story with an incredible sense of humour at the same time, and it is a really good place to start if you've not played any of those. You don't need to know anything else about the Yakuza games. It is just like, all right, cool. Here's a self-contained story that kind of gets you into it. I don't know how they're gonna do that because the next game is Yakuza 6, and I don't know how on earth they're gonna go from that to that. But yeah, it's I think you'll really like it. I'm going to keep playing it, and then I think I'll probably send it your way because I think you'll really appreciate it.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like something that would be up my street. How is it affecting your time with Final Fantasy 15 then?
Dude, I have not played any Final Fantasy 15. It's a really good game that I've been playing, and I really do enjoy it. But it's one of those games where I guess it feels a little bit like what you were feeling with The Witcher. Like Final Fantasy, it's so obviously massive. Obviously massive. And it's really daunting. So I decided to pick up Yakuza and play a little bit of that and wait to get into that. Into Final Fantasy. I do intend to go back to it because it is really enjoyable.
It's just the two of us today.
Yeah,
do you know that?
Yeah.
Unless anyone else realised. Yeah. Someone else has just been like listening in.
Chris is
just
quiet.
like Chris, like Dan's going to turn up at some point. I know
it's
like, It is just the two of us.
Yeah, I know,
Have I ever told you my story involving a Japanese man singing the Bill Withers classic, just the two of us in France?
No.
Okay, brilliant. Here we go.
I mean, I know the rough outline of it now, but go on.
That was just to tease you in.
Okay.
So, a few years ago, about 7 or 8, I cycled from Cherbourg to Le Havre in France, which is just across northern France, about 250 miles. And we were doing it quite leisurely, so you'd cycle during the day, then in the evening go out, have some beers, and have something nice to eat. And none of us were particularly fit. This wasn't about fitness. It was mainly about cycling across the D-Day invasion beaches and seeing a few other sites involved with World War II. But just kind of at the end of the day, we'd be like, well, let's fully relax, let's have drinks, and not rest and recuperate, get the protein on. None of that. And one night we stopped off at this lovely sleepy little town, and if you getting to know a place and getting to see a place, there's nothing better than going on bike, because you enter towns from a wonderful perspective, and you're able just to cycle around and get your bearings rather than being driven in or getting a train in or something like that. You really get a lovely perspective of places. And we came to this really nice town, and we just been out and had a few drinks, and we were with two dads. They were dads of people that we were with. They weren't just take a couple of dads along, rent a dad.
Just find some dads, yeah.
and they'd gone back to the hostel and gone to bed, and we were kind of like, well, we're still up for another one, so let's go and find a place. And we heard this music coming from this little French alleyway, this little cobbled street in this French town, and we found this really dinky little pub, and we kind of went in through the door, and there was one guy singing karaoke on his own in this little tiny French pub.
Do you mean it was he wasn't with friends?
He wasn't. He didn't appear to be friends. I think there was a couple of other people in there drinking, but they obviously were they were sitting having their own conversation at this round little table. And we kind of walked in and thought, that's a bit odd. And there was this little white dog on the table, on the seat as well. And we went to the bar, and we got speaking to the bar lady, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's my husband, and he really likes karaoke." And we walked into this room to see this tiny Japanese guy just singing song after song, after song, and he this isn't racist,
right?
Okay, but his interpretations of some songs,
right,
did lead
in exactly the same way that if I were to try and sing a French song, I would absolutely miss most of it because it's not my language.
And the thing is that nobody in there was mocking him. We were all we were all just imbued with this wonderful joy that he had. Yeah. Singing he's obviously, whether he'd come from Japan and always liked karaoke and just thought, now I own a bar and this is a wonderful chance for me to just put on my own karaoke or whatever. But he obviously absolutely loved it. And he started singing Bill Withers, Just the Two of Us, which is an incredible song on its own. But he pronounced it just the tuna bus.
Brilliant. Perfect.
And the end of the chorus. And the end of the chorus goes, "You and I." But for some reason, he said, "You and me." No, me and I. No, he said, "Me and I" at the end of the song.
But he is living his best life.
But he was. The fact is, it's just it was not. No way were we mocking him at all. It's just wonderful, bizarre, surreal experience of this man just
But that's the thing. Some people buy pubs because they want a place to put a snooker table, right? Some people run like they want to, like, you know, they want that thing of they get to about 45 and they're like, I'm going to buy a pub and stand behind the bar and clean glasses and play the odd role like game of pool. Clearly, this guy was like, I'm going to buy a pub with my partner. And I'm going to buy a karaoke machine. And she will have known. She will have known from the very beginning why they were getting into the hospitality business. Like, that is brilliant. Oh, man. Do you want to hear a story of mine? Well, it's not my story. Do you want to hear a story?
Well, yeah. So it's not your story, but it is just a story.
It's a story that got sent into us.
Sent in to us.
Yeah. So,
okay. We like a magazine radio show.
Yeah, now we're a magazine radio show, yeah.
We don't even have to create our own content. Just like send your stories along to stories at stayingin.com.
Don't do that, because we don't... do we? I don't think we have stayingin.com. In fact, what is stayingin.com? Hold on.
Have a look.
Oh, my word.
Go on.
What a weird website.
Oh my God. What have you just...
What is the... It's just...
Shall I have a look? Hang on.
Yeah,
hang on.
Go to it.
Hang on. Stayingin.com. Are you staying in?
It's just a grey background with the black writing that says, "Are you staying in?"
Am I going to get hacked?
I don't know. I think we might be hacked now. How strange.
Okay.
Anyway,
stayingin.co.uk is for sale.
All right, we'll have to buy that at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not that. No. So we tweet and stuff, and obviously we're on @StayingInPod, and we're all on Twitter and stuff. You can see it in the show notes and so on. But friend of the show, AlexSkull95 on Twitter, sent to me what I think is basically the best piece of journalism of the last 20 years. So it's from a very reputable paper over here in the UK called Sunday Sport.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Yeah. And so these are people who, I mean, they can't make this stuff up. I mean, obviously, they can, and they have. Yes. But the headline, and it very much is a headline, is, and I really do feel like we need to discuss this, Sam.
I'm ready.
Sex with Greg's pasty boiled my bell end. Now, Howard fumes, I'm going to sue. So this is the story about a man called Howard, who's described as an oddball in Sunday Sport. Howard Russell, in fact, is his name. So he's 32 years old, and he's a sales manager, apparently, for some company, I don't know. But according to this thing, he developed a sexual fetish for having sex with piping hot pasties. Alas, unwed Howard... Something there from the Sunday Sport, a little bit of editorialising. Unwed Howard came to a sticky end. A sticky and terribly blistered bell end. Last Saturday, after stocking up with chicken bakes, he scuttled back to his terraced home in Northwich, Cheshire, for an afternoon of bakery-based fornication. But finding that his purchases had cooled on the walk home, Howard blasted one of the bakes in the microwave before slipping in his erect member into the creamy white sauce interior. It was then he realised, far too late, that the microwaving process had raised the temperature of the sauce to something like that of an Icelandic volcano. So
he wants to sue, even though he was responsible for reheating the pasty.
Yeah, so his thing is, so he said that, I've been into the Greggs many, many times, and I have never seen a sign warning you to not put your penis into one of their products, especially after it has been reheated. Now, he's got a point there. If you go into a Greggs, and I don't know if they have Greggs across the world, but if you go into a Greggs... it doesn't say, please don't have sex with our chicken bakes, and certainly don't do it if you reheat it in the microwave afterwards. So he has got a point there. That being said,
does one have to be so dissatisfied with sex?
Well, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's play devil's advocate here. I don't want to speak for you, but I've never had sex with a chicken bake pasty.
And I've never had sex. And this is a difficult thing to. I don't know how open I want to be on this podcast, but
okay, go on.
I've never
placed myself into a pasty. God, with Dan and Chris away, this is all get a bit X-rated. But I guess the thing for me is I've never thought to myself, like I've never had the conscious thought to myself of that chicken bake. That looks like something
I know that'll make it.
Yeah, like I'd like to woo that. Do you know what I mean? I've never put those two things together. Do you know what I mean? You know, I've looked at, you know, I can visually understand why people make the distinction when you look at somebody holding a pair of literal plums. I can literally see why people would go, oh, there's a connection there, even though there really isn't. But I can see why somebody would go, there's some sort of strange connection there between one thing and one piece of fruit and another. But I've never made the connection of, oh, this horrible, acrid tasting fake chicken white saucy stuff. That looks like something that I would like to do a kiss on.
Imagine the mess at the end.
I know.
Because those things don't have much of a constitution to start with.
No, they fall apart in the bag.
Let alone once you start thrusting something in and out of it.
Oh, God. Howard.
I've been working on my resolution for the year. Resolutions for the year. Because I've kind of decided to kind of meld them into something. I think I finally nailed them down what my resolutions for the year are/is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's I'm going to embrace more of the physical. And by that I don't mean more Greg's pasties. I mean, well, at the end of the last year, I was watching a lot of stuff on Netflix, and I was reading a lot of books on my Kindle, and doing all that kind of stuff. And I've actually made a conscious effort since the year started, the new year, to actually read more stuff from a paperback in my hand and go to the cinema and watch a film rather than just watching it at home. And it's been good. I've got one book on my Kindle. Mm-hmm. I'm reading the Dark Tower series.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my nighttime book when all the lights are out.
Nice.
I can just me and my Kindle lamp.
Nice.
And we can speak to each other.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've been making a conscious effort to actually have as many sort of, and it just sounds really wrong, doesn't it? Physical experiences I can. But okay, I guess you know what I mean. I took a bit of umbrage with what Dan said on the previous podcast about not going to the cinema and being happy watching stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with him that in terms of picking a movie to go and see, it's tricky because of the price of going to see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the cinema is more than seeing something bigger or, just, it's a blockbuster, so it's better on a bigger screen. I think there's more to cinema than that. And this year, that's something I definitely want to embrace a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I watched Ex Machina the other day.
Right.
I watched the first hour of it in bed. I watched another half hour of it downstairs eating a sandwich during my lunch. And I watched the last half hour of it at work eating my tea in the canteen. Now, I'm pretty sure when Alex Garland made that movie, he thought, that's exactly how I want people to watch it. 3 different screens spread across 12 hours.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, this year, that's definitely one thing I want to, because for me, going to the cinema it's not about just seeing something on a big screen. It's taking yourself away from distraction, and it's taking yourself away from like being at home, and it's making like cinema an event.
Yeah.
And for me, even seeing a film that I don't particularly enjoy, I enjoy that process more seeing it at the cinema than I would do at home. Because we went to go and see La La Land the other day.
Right.
And and we chose to go and see it at the cinema because that's where it is. And because of the price of it, we make it an event. Oh, let's go out. Let's get people together. You know, not just me and my partner. Let's see who else is interested. Let's make it an event rather than we've got to spend 15 quid going to see this film.
Yeah.
And because of that, even though I didn't enjoy it, because I was there with people and with friends, I love that silence when you go and see a cinema when the film's over and you walk down the steps and no one says a word to each other until you like close the doors behind you. Then suddenly you erupt in this criticism and opinion about the film, and that's what I really enjoy. And I think that kind of physical relationship to a product is something I really want to embrace this year. Like I think that's one thing that cinema really lends itself to, the actual art of film, rather than just sitting back and watching it at your home. And so
How do you do that with other things?
So I think that, as I said, like I read a lot of stuff on my Kindle, but now I'm like just picking up books a lot more.
Right.
And for me, because my Kindle, I can just sit in bed and read it without the light on. My attitude to it at the end of the year certainly was, if I got some spare time in my hands, I wasn't necessarily reading because I'd be like, well, I'll do that tonight when I'm in bed.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I'm making more of a conscious effort to actually engage with a product. So I'm just like, well, I'll read. Because, you know, in order to put a book, I've got to sit somewhere nice and comfortable and, you know, make it nice. And I read a book that I've been trying to read for about 4 years that Chris got me.
Right.
For my birthday. It's a book called S. And it was conceived by J.J. Abrams and written by Doug Dorst.
What's it about?
It's right. If you were to buy S, you get a cardboard sleeve that says S on the front. Inside that cardboard sleeve, you get a book called The Ship of Theseus by a writer called V.M. Stracker.
Mm-hmm.
And that book is a work of fiction, but inside the world of S, it's a book that actually exists. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's a meta text.
So Doug Dorst has created this book, fictional author, but there's a mystery behind this author. No one knows who they were, but they were seemingly part of a revolutionary group, a group that acted on behalf of trying to crush an oppressive regime, an oppressive sort of dictator.
Yeah.
So within the liner notes, within the margins of this book, The Ship of Theseus, there's two people are having a conversation in the modern day. So the book is made to look like a library book in the United States. And so basically what these two characters are doing are, over a determined period of time, picking up the book every day and writing messages to each other, and then putting the book back on the shelf in the library and then picking it up and writing messages to each other. So whilst you've got this book, The Ship of Theseus, you've also got within the margins a conversation happening between two people, split over different timescales. And these two people are using the text to try and decipher the secret of who this writer was, V.M. Stracker. And within the book as well, they like hide like notes to each other and postcards that they're sending to each other if they go on trips, and maps that they're writing and newspaper articles, and all this stuff is like shoved within this wonderful, wonderful book. And it took me ages to kind of read. I started reading it 3 times, and it's only on this 4th occasion that I've actually kind of committed to it and read it, because you've kind of got to split your mind. You've got to do a bit of a King Killer Chronicles kind of thing, which is a reference that you won't get.
No, I've no idea what you're saying.
But you kind of got to, in King Killer Chronicles, in order to perform magic, you've got to split your mind to perform sympathy.
Okay.
So, so you've got to kind of split your mind and like read what's happening in the novel, and then also at the same time keep up with what's happening within the conversation between these 2 people, and then refer it back to the novel. So there's like this circular connection between what's happening in the novel and what's happening to the people, and what's happening to the people reflecting back into what's happening to the novel. And it's a fantastic, like, really interesting piece of work. I mean, the novel itself is superbly written, and like, as a book, I would sit down and read that, let alone have this mystery put on top of it. And because it's a piece of work by J.J. Abrams, people have gone deep with this. There are blogs, there are secret messages, there are radio broadcasts that are available. There are secret images that, like, Doug Dorst and J.J. Abrams have leaked. There are multiple strands that people have gone down and followed, like proper, like, Lost levels, sort of.
Yeah.
Deep diving that people gone into this book. I don't know if I'll be up for any of that. I think I would like to read it again, because I think on second reading I'll be a bit more, with hindsight, be a bit able to place the conversation, because the conversations don't necessarily happen in timeline, in consequential order.
Right.
They do jump around quite a bit and get in the way of each other, but it's just fantastic. And as a reading experience, like, if I tried to read that on a Kindle or whatever, it would just be completely lost. But because I had like this thing in my hand that was kind of felt almost fragile, because if I tipped it up in a certain way, all these pages would fall out, and it really felt like I was sort of party to this conversation between these 2 people. It's really good, and it's like a narrative thing that I've not really been part of before. And at the same time I was reading that, I was also playing Stories, Path of the Destinies.
Okay.
Which is a game that I got free on PS Plus. And I was kind of a bit in a funk, and I was kind of like downloading stuff from PS Plus. Like, I downloaded The Swindle, didn't really get along with it, and Skulls of the Shogun. And I started playing Stories. And I think me and you were about to play online, and I was just like kicking around on it. And I remember saying to you that it was like quite a bland game. Like, I don't think the combat was really impressive. It's kind of sluggish and slow. And really, you play this red fox called Ronaldo or something like that. Reynard, that's it. And just playing this simple story, trying to save the world, rescue your girlfriend, making some sort of what appear to be very binary choices, and that was it, the end of the game. And I carried on playing it when we'd stopped playing, and something really interesting happened. That my character got killed. And then the story rewound itself and started exactly from the same place at the beginning again. And it's got this Bastian-esque narrator speaking you through the whole thing, and said maybe now Reynard will make different choices about where to go. And the whole game just started over again and made different choices, ended up going down different pathways, got a different ending, still died, and then went back to the beginning again. And the whole idea of the game is that you've got to try and find 4 truths within the story. So there's 4 truths that exist in all the stories, which will lead you to the correct path. By knowing these truths, by knowing that certain people are traitors and certain people love you secretly and certain things act in a certain way, and that is a truth, you will eventually be able to find yourself to the actual correct path. And that was like, again with S, like 2 really interesting ways of using narrative and using and telling a story that I just never come across before. And if you've got stories, I'd really recommend like a playthrough.
Is that really recent? I don't have it on my queue list.
You might not have. You might have missed it. It was definitely a couple of months ago. But it's just got one of these really odd, like bland titles, like The Adventurer: Stories of Adventure, and just like I don't. You know, if anyone skipped over in PS Plus, I really don't blame them, because it does. And the first 20-30 minutes are really quite slow and bland. But once that twist kicks in about the stories and how the actual game functions and works, like that's really interesting.
That was Staying In with Sam Turner and Peter Willington. Thanks for listening, and please make sure you subscribe so you can get all the latest episodes as soon as they are available. We're on Stitcher, Acast, iTunes, and pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast. If you can't find us, please let us know and we'll send Pete out into the wilderness to get it fixed. And if you want to help the show, the absolute best thing you can do is head over to iTunes and leave us a review. We don't do any marketing for the show, so this is the best way to let other people know who we are and what we do. So until next time, thanks for listening.